Michael Cohen, the president's personal lawyer for more than a decade, reached a plea deal Tuesday with U.S. attorneys. Arguably more shocking than the deal itself was that the president's one-time confidant admitted in open court he committed campaign finance fraud at then-candidate Trump's direction. We spoke with lawyer Dan Patalas about what this could mean for the president and his legal team going forward. What do prosecutors do now about President Trump?
As you know, there's a number of pending investigations proceeding. The Southern District of New York, which is separate from the special counsel's office, and Robert Mueller. Both of those investigations are going to continue. But there's no question that information and evidence that the Southern District of New York prosecutors glean from their investigation of Cohen will be available to the special counsel's office. So I expect that you will continue to see the investigations continue. And of course, the nature of these allegations, which impinge directly upon President Trump, will be an issue of great interest, probably to both offices.
Did he incriminate the president when he said that the president reimbursed him for these payments, directed him to make these payments?
Yeah, he directly incriminated the president of the United States in a federal felony offense. It remains to be seen whether the government can prove that. But there's no question that the president's personal lawyer directly asserted that he was directed to commit a felony crime by the president of the United States in the months leading up to the election of the president.
Why wasn't he named during that guilty plea? They kept saying, you know, the candidate for federal office.
Right, individual number one.
Exactly.
So it's a matter of DOJ policy. It has nothing to do with this particular case or the fact that President Trump is the sitting president. But rather, as a matter of DOJ policy and in fairness to those who might be being investigated or related to people who have been pled or charged, they don't name the proper names of third parties in these sorts of filings.
If you're President Trump or you're President Trump's lawyers, what do you do now?
Well, I think the lawyers are probably doing the same thing they've been doing, which is trying to control their client, advising their client, trying to work to the extent that they can with the special counsel's office, doing everything they can to keep at bay the investigation, to keep it from getting too close to the president. Like any other person, anything he says or does publicly is fair game for a prosecutor to consider in assessing whether the conduct that he's engaged in violates criminal law.
Well, Robert Mueller has said that he's not necessarily going to indict a sitting president, but can the Southern District of New York do that?
Well, it's a question that is unresolved. The Department of Justice in the past has issued opinions from their legal counsel's office saying that the president should not be subject to indictment while sitting as president. Presumably, but we don't know, both the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York and Robert Mueller's special counsel's office will follow DOJ policy, or at least the counsel's advice in that respect. In addition to criminal prosecution, as a sitting president, he's subject to the impeachment process. And if impeached for some high crime or misdemeanor, which this and other conduct could amount to, then, like anybody else, as a former president, he's certainly subject to criminal prosecution.
The difference between criminal and civil campaign finance violations all comes down to intent. It's one of those rare cases where ignorance of the law is a defense. So here, the government must show the president was aware that paying what amounts to hush money would have been a violation of campaign finance laws. If they can't prove that specifically, it would only be a civil violation.